Get ready to dive into the thrilling world of e commerce where innovation meets opportunity. In this podcast episode, we are exploring the fast paced career of a product manager in the e commerce industry. We'll unravel the secrets behind driving successful online businesses from spark of an idea to the satisfaction of a customer's need. Welcome to another episode on my channel, Future Ready Tools. Let's start with your background experience and just share your journey into the world of e-commerce and do touch upon what inspired you to specialize in e-commerce.
So actually, I'm a computer science student. Did my 11th, 12th in computer science, and I was a fairly average student. Didn't score well enough, and at that period of time, I wasn't as keen on my studies either. So I took up hotel management. So it was hospitality studies, and to be fair, it got me quite disciplined in my approach. Opened avenues for me to see at an early age of what goes on in an hospitality industry. And post that, I come from a background filled with teachers. My mom's a teacher, my sister's a teacher, a few of my cousins are teachers and guest lecturers. So my mom said that you've got to have this uh, element of studying first, then to go into the direction of uh, working. So I did my MBA from Singapore. It was a year and a half course. And then once I came back, I went back into the travel industry. I was working with Travelocity, where I was first initially exposed to the world of e-commerce. And I worked as a content writer and an SEO specialist. Uh, Although it was a short period of time, this was back in 2011 when uh, SEO was fairly young in its own nascent stage. Not many people knew about it, but I had a good line manager who got me through into teaching on SEO activities, and we used to work extra hours during the time of the day. We were launching this new website for Travelocity India, and it gave me a wide exposure of what the world of e-commerce would entail. I think that was a good building block for me. Then I got into Emirates back in 2012, and I started off as an e-commerce coordinator. And there I was exposed to a different side of things, more on the pricing elements of how the website pricing is different from the retail pricing side of things, how B2B partners operate, what kind of loyalty system works. And there was a good growth path that was associated with it. I was lucky enough to have a great line manager over there who taught me the ropes at that period of time, gave me a sort of an international exposure also to the world of e-commerce. And I was lucky enough to be timed when Emirates at that period of time didn't even have their Facebook account opened up, let alone they didn't even have a mobile application. So it was a good learning curve for me to uh, understand it from ground zero. I progressed through my roles over there as from a coordinator to an executive, and then it gave me an opportunity to be with Donata over here, where I worked as an e-commerce specialist. So it was a grade up to my role that I had back in India, and now settled in Dubai. The e-commerce field was completely different. Although I was in the service industry, but Donata, I was managing the Maraba side of things, wherein I was looking after the daily e-commerce activities from a service aspect. If not many people are aware about Maraba, but Maraba provides this meet and greet services and lounge services to the customers who come in, and the whole idea is to make the journey much more at ease for these customers who are coming into Dubai. They do have operations all across the world right now, and they're continuing to expand. And my role over there was to drive the e-commerce channel for them. What was a good part on that period of time was there was a good overlap with a new Salesforce project, which again helped me to understand from ground zero what goes into working from an e-commerce aspect and then speaking to the B2B side of things, the service side of things. And that Salesforce project was more of a back-end technology we used to revamp our uh, entire website for Maraba and a couple of other brands that we were working at that period of time. It was a long project. It took about a good year and a half to complete. And once it was complete, unfortunately, we were hit by COVID. And at that period of time, there was a lot of backlash in terms of traveling. People were not traveling at all, but still we had to uh, be quite innovative in our ways of providing the services when it came with Maraba and utilize that opportunity of bringing out products which are much COVID friendly in a way to bring that sense of security to the customer who was coming in to Dubai or moving out from Dubai at that period of time. And but that being said, once COVID was on its way out and work from office started to resume, we did start to see an uplift of transaction coming in from a service side of thing, and e-commerce along with travel started to pick up. Post that, I've shifted my roles, and I said that it's been quite a fair amount of time. I was with the travel industry, so it was time for me to move uh, from into a different industry. And one of my mentors over there, he gave me a very good tip was to keep the discipline the same, but an industry different. So my discipline would be in the field of e-commerce, and that's what I tried to stick to. And I got this role as an e-commerce product manager at Do, where I was looking at only the mobile portfolio. Do has separate portfolio, so we would sell mobiles onto the website, but at a planned level. So you could purchase an iPhone for a period and pay it out in a period of 24 months. And then you also had other postpaid, prepaid plans which were there. And it was a great learning curve. I got an exposure with logistics of what goes on at warehouses. I had a team under me which worked from the website development side of things to app development and SIT, UAT, which is more about testing the entire journey. And it was a great learning curve in terms of understanding what goes beyond only an e-commerce technical stack perspective. What's happening with our partners? How are we dealing with people from Apple? How are we dealing with people from Samsung? How many stocks do we have in hand? What are the challenges from warehouses? What kind of incentive programs we can use to drive sales and faster delivery rates through the warehouses. So it was a great, interesting curve to learn. And then finally, I moved to currently where I'm working right now is with Siddiqui Holding, where I'm working again as a product e-commerce manager. But this time, my discipline again is the same e-commerce, but the industry is luxury retail. Siddiqui manages portfolios of high-end luxury watches, the likes of Rolex, Patek, Chopard, so on and so forth. And my role over there is to look from an omni-channel perspective of how can we unite different systems, unite different retail outlets with the e-commerce stream of business that we have. In addition to that, we have something called a biannual event, which is called the Dubai Watch Week, which we had this year. And I was a project manager for that particular experience where we had about 60 brands who came into the Dubai Watch Week here in the IFC, and they were participating. So we ended up creating a whole new app for Dubai Watch Week, and it was a free for all event, so anyone could just download the app and then register themselves and attend different type of events. Uh, it's considered the only event where you have the luxury of asking for a watch and then uh, wearing it on your wrist. It was a really fun journey, especially from an e-commerce perspective of how uh, people actually participate into events like these. And yeah, that's about it. That's my journey so far.
Okay, great. Good to know. So, if I have to summarize, you didn't intend to start in the e-commerce discipline. It was never your thought, but it became like a gradual progression as you started, your education, and then you did your MBA, and then as the career took you into a different direction, you got into e-commerce, which is what enticed you to stay out there and continue so far.
Yeah, that's how it's been for me. So it's always been in a state where uh, I wasn't aware about where I want to take my journey to when I was studying. In my 11th, 12th, I knew that I had to be someone who is in the science stream, and I had this fascination of computer science. So I did take that up, but still, I didn't know whether I would end up being into engineering or some sort of a developer, front end developer, back end developer. And e-commerce was the right mix, I would say, that happened at that period of time. I was lucky enough that it intertwined with my completion of my course at MBA and activities from a travel perspective and e-commerce perspective started to pick up. So it was I was lucky enough to know that, but I didn't have any sort of education background or direction at that period of time. But that being said, as I've got this experience over the period of time and these key players in my life who've helped me guide through of how would I go about with my direction in the field of e-commerce is what has helped me to maintain and stick to this particular discipline and move from industry to industry and see how different every industry is from one another.
Right. So if you talk about e-commerce, I mean, you have the big sites like the Amazons and the Flipkarts and the Mintras. And then on one side, the kind of industry that you worked in is travel, telecom, and now, luxury. So by and large, the departments or, the various activities that happen for an e-commerce related site or e-commerce products is the same. Would you summarize it that way? Because you talked about warehouse, you talked about logistics, and you talked about the retail aspects. So from that perspective, I'm asking.
No, it's quite different when I look at it from industry to industry. And I think that's also the kind of motivation someone needs to have in terms of moving from industry to industry, trying to understand of how different industries are using the same means or a channel of e-commerce on their side of implementation. In the case of an Amazon or a Noon, if you go to see, they are fast moving consumer goods which you which you would want to order in the next 15 minutes or would expect to have it in the next day or so. And if you don't have it, then you'll ask, oh, where's my refund, where's my return, or why is it delayed? And the same goes with a food delivery app, whether it's a Zomato or Deliveroo. But when you look at something on the other end of the spectrum, such as a Rolex watch, it is something which is high in demand, but very limited in supply. And if someone would want to buy a Rolex watch, he would have to wait for a good stipulated period of years to get that kind of a Rolex watch. So what can e-commerce do in that sense to continue to have his chain of momentum and still be anticipating for that watch to come in at that period of time? So it differs from industry to industry. There's no sort of a blueprint which is there. And I would still say that it's in its early nascent stages right now. It's not something that has made retail move away completely, or today's e-commerce presence in India alone is only at 3.6%, whereas in the case of UAE, it's about 10%. So retail does play a significant role. And I think e-commerce should be considered only as a channel that works alongside with retail rather than being a sole channel in its own sense.
Yeah, that's an interesting fact, actually, in terms of the percentage also that you mentioned. I was always under the impression that, COVID had got everybody into that phase wherein people were ordering online and e-commerce was a big boom. But post-COVID, probably things just turned a little downwards, and the percentage that you mentioned talks about that, I guess.
Yeah, and well, if you introspect it, then you'll also see that although the e-commerce percentage has gone down over the years, especially in a market like India, uh, it was hitting to a north of a 5%, almost touching a 6% during the COVID period of time. Because again, you had that dependency with the people staying at home, so they would order something which would be online, but that in its way paid way to digital payments altogether. And India is one of the leading places at this given point, with which has about 40% of digital payments that are being made by a household. So 40% of your transaction in India, if you're in a household of four people, would adopt or use a digital payment method. And whether it is your kirana wala or whether it is your regular grocery shopping that you want to do, you would end up paying through Paytm or any of those kind of apps. That adoption rate is much more higher, but it hasn't transcended into the retail space per se, which is why the e-commerce retail space is still at a minimal kind of a level, because there's also the impact of tier two, tier three cities, which kind of dilute the percentage overall.
Yeah. So today, if I have to ask you that a student who's doing their graduation, what do they need to do, or what is the path that they need to take in terms of getting into the e-commerce world? Now, you talked about product manager as one of the profiles that you've been working on, but are there other profiles or career options or job options within the e-commerce industry which the students of the Gen Zs or the Alpha generations can explore?
So the generation at this point in time is quite lucky, because you've got multiple resources that are available that weren't available even 10 years ago. So during my early stages of career, I had to learn everything by myself by just Googling it up. Right now, if I just chat GPT it up, it gives me the answers that I'm looking for, which is in its sense giving you faster pace of information. But I would still be on the line of getting yourself educated in a way with a valid certification. There's a good free available course by Google Garage, by Google themselves, called Google Garage. And I also started one of my certifications that I think so back in 2013, 2014, using that particular module to just to understand what e-commerce, what SEO, what other channels have in store for me when I'm going down this path of an e-commerce journey altogether. Uh, we also used to do these collective meetups with my team of, I think so, 8, 10 people every Saturday. And we used to just call it Free Code Camp. Free Code Camp is an organization, non-profit organization, which helps you with coding. So just to upscale my technical skill set, we used to have these meetups on a weekly basis, and we used to get people from all different walks of life. My suggestion to this particular generation, Gen Z, is obviously surround yourself with people who are more on the lines of knowing about e-commerce or are going down that stream. Because if you more surround yourself or network yourself around those kind of people, you'll be just thinking about it as well subconsciously. Other elements would definitely be that you can freely pick up a course, and these courses do have a validation in it in their own sense, and they will help you certify into your career path. You can pick up a full-time course, and that would be amazingly beneficial for you. But then again, the way I see it from a full-time perspective is the technologies are advancing at such steady rate. So we didn't have ChatGPT a year and a half ago. We do have it now, and we have two, three other variants of it as well. So if you go down the path of educating yourself in a school and try to get an e-commerce course, that's great. But try to continue to have that stream of educating yourself and keeping yourself updated over again, parallel to it, because you don't want to be that, okay, I finished my course, I'll be granted with this XYZ job, but since the technology is going to keep on changing, you've got to keep on learning as well.
Right. So let's talk about some e-commerce trends and what are the current trends in the e-commerce that you find most exciting? And how do things like emerging technologies like AI and VR, how do you think that will shape the future of e-commerce?
So AR and VR is something I think is an emerging technology. I have a close friend of mine who is working with an AR technology at this period of time, and the way they are trying to build is uh, put a Rolex watch on your hand. Now you can imagine something from a luxury retail watch, which is not available for the next 2 to 3 years, but you would still want to have that kind of a feel, not a feel, but have a visual appeal to how would the watch look to your hand, and based on the movements that are there. So AR is definitely on its path of growing, and it's definitely something that is going to help businesses to scale up in terms of selling a particular product. Salesforce recently showed a new kind of a technology which integrates with VR, and their idea is to connect that VR technology in kiosk at different booths. So if you are walking into a car store, an automobile store, you could be not seeing a car at all, but they'll give you these VR glasses, and you could then have a look and feel of how the car is, of what material it is made, what kind of alloy wheels are attached to it, and you can play around with that VR experience altogether. Within that VR experience, Salesforce has integrated a way of making part payments to that product itself. So even without removing the glasses out, you are able to select that product, the color of the product, and the experience of the product, and then make that decision. Okay, I'm ready to pay for this, and complete that transaction within VR itself. That's definitely a technology I would say or trend to look out for. The another interesting piece is going to be definitely on AI, and I think everyone's been talking about AI at this period of time, especially with the outburst of ChatGPT in the last year. But that being said, I feel still it is in its early stages to sort of recommend what needs to go out to the end user. It's got a very well, at this stage, it's not a steep learning curve. It's quite a flat learning curve that AI has, and it will progressively grow. And we are at this point only pointing out to ChatGPT or the Microsoft AI, which is there. As new technologies emerge, hopefully there's a faster rate of progression which is there. And I think that would be a phenomenal game changer when it comes to integrating with e-commerce. And finally, I feel social commerce is something that you can jump on the bandwagon right now. Instagram has its own Instagram checkout funnel, which is available. WhatsApp has started to put in catalogs and a cart feature within WhatsApp itself. So if WeChat, we all know, is already out there who does these kind of transactions in its own space itself. And if you see something like WhatsApp doing it, then definitely it would be a game changer for this year. I think a good opportunity lies in social commerce as well.
Yeah, that would be interesting to keep a watch in terms of how the e-commerce world is going to change with respect to VR and AI. And what do you have any recommendations in terms of how to keep oneself updated in terms of what's happening, going to happen, or rather happening and will happen in the future with all these emerging technologies that's being talked about?
So well, personally for me, I try to keep myself in the loop with different sort of magazines and uh, these places where they share market insight. So for big commerce gives a good level of e-commerce articles. They have their own tech stack, but I like to read their white paper quite frequently. Forbes is one of the go-to places for me, and in addition to that, Harvard Business Review from a technology space does continuously give you an insight. I think technology is something that is growing on a day-to-day basis. A news medium in any shape or form would be an ideal way to approach it, to be stay up to speed. And then going back to my point of networking to the right set of people, if you surround yourself with the right set of people who are involved in the same kind of field that you want to pursue, so whether it is e-commerce or retail or aviation, so then it will just help you guide you through of what an emerging technology would be, or what an emerging new feature is going to be look like.
Right. What does your day-to-day life look like, and what are the challenges that you face on a professional front?
I try to start my day early. I've got that habit with Emirates. I typically start my day at 8 o'clock in the office. Uh, the first exercise is usually to identify my to-do list of all the things that I have planned in action for the day and for the coming week. Microsoft has this very simple feature of things to do, where I keep a track of all my set of things. And based on that, I try to, there's a saying that eat the toad first. So eat the biggest task, exercise first. And that's what I try to uh, complete it at the early start of the day, so that at least for the later half, if there is any sort of a response that comes in, I can tackle with it during my midday period of time, or later during the day period of time. Then I try to avoid meetings as much. I do have this good flexibility with my line manager of just stepping into her office and just asking her if there is any sort of a roadblock that we are going to be facing, or any kind of a challenge. Uh, we do have a daily stand up with our teams as well, uh, the development teams, so to see how things are being progressed on a day-to-day basis, and what kind of roadblocks are they facing. We try to keep the session only a 15 minutes, and our team has about 7 people in total, eight including myself. So within that 15-minute window, almost like 2 minutes each, we identify what kind of challenges that we have and just tick the boxes if there are any sort of no roadblocks which are there in place. And then during the later course of the day, I try to have any sort of meetings if needed, so that at least I can have them actioned post the meeting or early in the day the next day, because usually the summation in its own sense takes in own period of time, and I would want to close my day in accordance with that. And that's about it.
Right. And do you kind of have any day-to-day challenges, or let's say you're working on a project, or because of so much of emerging technologies, what are the challenges that you see in order to complete your tasks or deliver the desired output or business value that we all keep talking about?
So, like you rightly put it, that technology is emerging at a very faster pace, and uh, because of that, you have different side of that challenges which you might just unexpectedly have the next following day. A good example that was there recently was with Dubai Watch Week, when we had the event that was hosted over here in November. And in that particular space, one challenge that we were facing was that everything was being built on the app without having the location being set up, because this was an event. So it was more like a pop-up stall that we were trying to install for all the places. So the team delivered in its complete space the entire map of where individual stalls would be, and where individual watches would be held. And it worked great on the app as well as on the website. 2 days just before the event, I just picked up my dad and we just walked down to the event, and we just scanned through and found out that there was a challenge with the markings of the locations individually, of how it reflected on the app and how it reflected on real time. So that was a massive challenge that we were facing. And at that period of time, I just started putting out my locations individually over there and then mapping it correctly onto the app. So, like you can see that while you might have a blueprint in your own sense for the website or for the app, and it might work perfectly as smoothly as you would want, but a real life instance could be a game changer in its own sense. So challenges like these, especially when it came to the event, at the time of the event, were quite frequent in its shape or form, because real time managing set of people is quite different than what an app or a website is doing. You don't have that sense of one-to-one connect when it comes to a website. It is what you see is what you get in the case of a website.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. And there's so much talk about sustainability and environment, saving the environment, saving the world. Are there big initiatives, or as individual organizations, is there anything that's being done from a sustainability perspective?
So I think back with Emirates as an example, one of the things that they keep on mentioning quite frequently is on the lines of their carbon footprint, which is there, and lower emission of carbon, or having a lower carbon footprint awareness. And I think the Gen Z is more aware and more adamant on the fact that we need to be taking that kind of a step, which is good, because the future leaders who will be there would also take in that role from an environmental perspective or sustainability perspective, which is there, and that will definitely help into transition where we are at this particular stage. Uh, Although it's not the best of the state at this given period of time, but there are sort of initiatives which every organization is trying to take it at a mandatory level. But I feel that it's not a sole e-commerce kind of a responsibility. It is a responsibility for all of us to take that sort of an initiative. And if you have people who will lobby for this, then definitely it would head in the right direction. Like I said, e-commerce is just a channel. It's just going to put a better word into the grander scheme of things.
Yeah, that is true. That's true. Sustainability is everybody's responsibility, is how I would put it. In terms of the future prospects for the Gen Zs and the Gen Alphas, who the Gen Alphas basically they're still in their college schools, and the Gen Zs who are in the college, what do you think are the future prospects for them, especially when there's so much talk about artificial intelligence, jobs getting replaced, there's so much of uncertainty. So when it comes to the e-commerce world, obviously there are quite a few professions or careers or jobs within the e-commerce industry. So, from a next 5 to 10 years perspective, what do you think are the future? How is it going to be for the current generation with respect to the e-commerce industry?
Um, the challenge I feel is there's too much of distraction that is happening at this particular with this particular day and age, and it's not just about whether it's Gen Z or millennials. It's with everyone. My father is quite addicted to sending WhatsApp messages as a forward on a day-to-day basis. So I feel it's with all of us. It's not just a particular generation what say. So I would say to go back to the foundation level, be at a grassroots level. So whether for the next 5 to 10 years, if you are trying to pursue something into a career from an e-commerce perspective, minimize your set of distractions would be an ideal first step. Although if you are trying to pursue something in the digital marketing side of things, when it comes to WhatsApp or TikTok or Snapchat, then definitely be aware. But try to keep it as a business module if you want to pursue it in that particular set of field. Learn the second would be learn the ropes. It's ground zero at a grassroots level that you have to learn yourself, build your foundation as strong as possible. Because my first year of experience as an content writer was great for me to help me out in terms of understanding that what does e-commerce has in store for me maybe in the possible future. And I did surround myself with so many individuals from analytics, from PPC perspective, website building, designing. So I did that piece of work at that early stage itself, and that just helped me to understand of how e-commerce is going to shape up or work for me as my career path. So build in your foundation. If you're pursuing e-commerce or any other aspect or any other career pursuit, then build that foundation stronger and be patient with it. If you're not patient enough, then and you have this very minimal, time period to understand and then give up about it, there are definitely going to be days where you might think that, this is not working for me. I just want to quit, or this is not the right fit for me. Just hold on to it. I would say just be patient about it and work towards it. There would be possibly something in store. And then once you've given that period of time, life's too short. You move on to the next side thing that you really want to do. So try to pick it up at that kind of pace.
Yeah, I think that's a good advice there. In terms of you touched upon web designing, you touched upon analytics. So, for a person who is getting into this e-commerce world, what are the tools and technologies that they should be aware of, that they should learn about, so that when they are, applying for jobs or looking out for options in the e-commerce world, then they are like future ready. They have learned these tools and technologies, they have experience using it. So, what would be your advice be in terms of the tools and technologies that one should know?
So, when you're talking from a trading perspective, e-commerce trading perspective, definitely my go-to place would be Google Garage. Firstly, it's definitely for free. So, you'll get the certificate as well. So, Google Garage will help you at least to understand of what's in store from an e-commerce perspective overall, whether it's from an SEO perspective or from a paid campaign perspective, and even from a cybersecurity perspective. So if you're looking for particularly of how to trade an e-commerce website, then that would be a go-to point. If you're more into the designing side of things, I would definitely suggest that practice as much as designing as possible and try to keep the focus on mobile designs, because at this day and age, we are kind of quite moving out from desktops and laptops, and everything is easily accessible on your mobile phone to even take an action or send out an email. So mobile first designs are a go-to place. Try to keep working on designs on different kind of industries, whether it is travel or fitness or retail. Try to work on those design and share it with all possible people around you, whether it's your family members or even friends, so that at least you have a good enough critique on how they are kind of working out. Now, when it comes to something on the sides of analytics, again, I would suggest Google Garage, but there is something called Content Stack and Contentful, which are more of a CRM tools. But I think they do have these kind of white papers that are available that you can reach out and try to understand from an analytics standpoint. But I would suggest that try to get under the hood of anything when it comes to analytics. So if you have an exposure with real-time data from somewhere that you're pulling in, try to understand that first. Try to understand what KPIs, what metrics people actually look at, and then in accordance to that, try to build your own analysis. Try to run it past. Now we have Chat GPT, running past through Chat GPT in terms of getting a critique on what kind of that analysis, does it work well or does it not work well. So and these would be a typical go-to tool at this period of time.
That's great. That's good to know. So, just two final questions rather. The second last one is, what is the most rewarding aspect for you in this career in e-commerce?
The learning curve, I believe, it's a no-brainer for me, and I think the learning curve is quite steep, and in its own self, it's quite fastly growing. It's changing on a day-to-day basis. Like I said, ChatGPT was not there for a year and a half, and sooner or later there'll be some other sort of a technology would that would take up, shape or form that we would might need it as a necessity at this given point. So that's the reason why I feel e-commerce is quite handy. Well, my seems quite rewarding. The other aspect I feel it being rewarding is it kind of gives me a backdoor entry when it comes to retail, and I never had this retail kind of an experience whatsoever. So from my transition from Emirates into Do, I did see what happens from a logistic perspective, from a warehousing perspective, from a partnership perspective. So that kind of backdoor entry is really fruitful for me to understand different sides of the businesses, and then how can I encompass it into a sort of an omni-channel approach for the entire e-commerce or any particular business, so to say.
Yeah. Okay, and any final words to the young generation? I know you have spoken a lot as part of this conversation. You have given some tips as well as some directions in terms of the tools and technologies, but any other final words that you want to say before we end the conversation?
I would say just keep learning. E-commerce is just a sort of a channel, and consider e-commerce as a channel alone. Don't consider that it is your whole and soul business. Uh, I've got friends who have explored into the e-commerce space, and now they're kind of realizing that e-commerce is just going to be a channel that is going to assist me in pushing in numbers. So consider it not the only source of your bread and butter. It is a good way to access into a different side of world altogether, because you'll get a lot of understanding and learning from different teams, departments which are there. And I feel the biggest takeaway should be that develop on interpersonal skills, because technologies will come and go, but these interpersonal skills on listening, communicating are there to for a longer period of time. And it's not just going to help you from a professional front, but also from a personal front as well.
Yeah, I agree. And interpersonal skills cannot be replaced by AI.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, okay.